I think we've all been very privileged to hear some really incredible talks, panels, conversations, hopefully connections made as well, all the way through from, even though fatherhood isn't on the horizon for me just yet, I am pretty scared about all the references made to like Roblox and, Fortnite and the amount of money that's spent on these things. And then thinking about payments, I'm just like, our bank's going to be obsolete like tomorrow. So I'm very, inspired by many of the conversations that we've had. No, exactly, that's the right answer. Yeah, no, it won't. No, just set the tone there. But I feel privileged in terms of having this time with you guys. And one thing I'd like to do to just not just have the attention on me, I would love to just have hand raises. I don't know whether I really like the Web 2 versus Web 3 terminology here, but we'll roll with it anyway. Who's here from like a Web 2 company? Yeah, let's go with that. If you're a Web 2 company more than Web 3, can you raise your hand? Okay, awesome. And Web 3 companies then, raise your hand. And from those Web 3, keep your hands up. So Web 3, do you have more of a, if you have more of an infrastructure focus in terms of your solution, keep your hand raised. Cool. If it's more of a consumer, then cool. All right, awesome. Good to know. General spec of land of where we're at landscape-wise. Cool. So a few more energy hooks that are probably going to come into this as well. So just like hopefully pay attention to this over the next 10 to 15 minutes. So I'm Fahim. I look after channel partnerships over at Optimism, been part of the team for about 8 months now. I work very closely with the amazing team over at Gelato and many other ecosystem providers as well to help enable them to learn more about the OP stack, learn more about the technology, learn about some of the amazing product updates that our team have been working on and deploying on, as well as so much more as well. I've been in Web3 for 8 years now, 7, 8 years, and have contributed to a range of different DAOs very early in just being bullish around decentralized autonomous organizations. I feel like having group community-led coordination is something that sometimes we lack as a society, and sometimes the corporate structure can be a little restrictive. So it's nice to have different vehicles at which we can connect and grow and coordinate with a bunch of people that are passionate about a range of different issues, all the way from owning your own NBA team to people coming together to disrupt research, technology, and science together and fund scientific initiatives. So a lot of fun all along the way in my own journey. So what is Optimism? Let's start with that. Optimism essentially is a group of misfits, geeks, nerds, people who want to make change in society in a positive manner, whether it be you're a company, whether it be an institution, whether it be a DAO, whether it be a community initiative, essentially to reward public goods and public good type activities, as well as create a more sustainable future for Ethereum through a scalable L2 infrastructure, which has now expanded way more into many other things that we've worked on. Optimism as a whole has been around since 2020, and the team, as I kind of alluded to earlier in the panel, I feel very privileged to sometimes be in a Slack and feel just like, wow, I'm surrounded by some incredible gigabrains in like my own internal Slack, and these people who help to create Ethereum and create kind of this sharding technology called optimistic rollups, which then led to our name Optimism. Fun fact, we also have just launched this solution called Plasma, or OP Plasma, which kind of pays homage to the days when we were a non-profit called Plasma Group in 2018. One problem that actually happened with Plasma Group is that it was a non-profit to research best practices around how to scale Ethereum. The challenge with that was that non-profits don't get very much attention or funding or resources, which then led to us pioneer retro PGF, which is retroactive public goods funding. As of 4 months ago, we had announced that we have reserved 850 million OP, so roughly around $2 to $2.5 billion, to give back to the community, to give back to the collective, for people who make positive contributions whether it be through adding demand for block space, whether it be through education, community initiatives, whether it be language translation of blockchain-related education and technology, and so much more. On top of that, we also have the Superchain, which I briefly spoke about earlier on, and we'll have more of a focus in this talk around too, which is essentially this horizontal, scalable network of chains that all share common characteristics and align around a shared standard together. I'll speak more about that as we go through it. The final point is around, and there's so much more, but these are the four I chose, was around decentralized governance. So with decentralized governance, one thing that we found was this DAO structure sounds good, but it needs structure. It needs not just people to buy tokens and be able to make decisions. So we don't want to have a bunch of whales just buying tons and tons of tokens and then deciding whatever they want to decide on based on the number of tokens they have. We also want to have a strong belief that it's important that we provide kind of intel information as well as the opportunity for individuals who want to contribute, who may not have necessarily the financial capacity to buy, 100 million OP tokens and delegate those and make decisions as part of the DAO, but want to give time, effort, energy towards important decisions when it comes to governance. So we have what's called this bicameral governance system that's led by Token House and by Citizen House, and it's really, really cool. I can tell you more about it later, but I got to carry on. So, as we think about the design philosophy behind the OP stack, so the OP stack is this kind of open source performance technology stack that allows rollups to be built on top of in order to scale and be able to have essentially their own block space. We heard from Ismail earlier on around the importance on having abundant block space. Now, one important way that we're looking at doing that across the Superchain is by having the opportunity to launch more and more rollups. By launching your own rollup, you own your own land. You have your own space. You have your own compute, essentially. In the Web 2 world, this would be you have your own container, your own development container to be able to operate, launch applications, and not be bogged down by other applications that might be taking away energy or gas fees, for instance, that might be rising because of another application. So that's really a strong use case around launching your own rollup. Essentially, in that design philosophy, we're MIT open source, open licensed. That has been a really important decision from day one that we wanted to incorporate. And in terms of that, that is something that is written into our constitution in terms of the Optimism constitution, or as it was referred to by Lewis earlier on, was around the law of chains. The second focus for us is on Ethereum alignment. So when we talk about Ethereum alignment, it's very much about being Ethereum equivalent. So the focus for us when we built the OP stack was to reduce the number of diff lines in our code that you have when you're building a technology stack or when you're building a rollup, so that we have less than 1,000 lines of this kind of diff code. The more diff codes that you have, the more essentially lines of code that you have in your infrastructure, the more potential for vulnerabilities of attack, more attack vectors that can exist. Fun fact, in 2021, we actually deleted like 90,000 lines of code just because we wanted to make really intentional design decisions around how we build technology to ensure that it becomes as easy as possible to pick up the OP stack and run with it. And now teams can do that. They can launch rollups very, very quickly, within a very short time span. The third aspect is that it's modular. It's easy to use. It's plug and play. It's elements whereby you can take alternative elements of different stacks. There are multiple consensus execution clients that can exist. We spoke earlier on about different proof mechanisms. So we have the fault proof mechanism. We're going to have the ZK proof mechanism. I'm sure many others will come down the line depending on the use cases that exist to ensure that these can then plug into the OP stack. So we want to make it the industry standard for people to use when they're thinking about what technology decisions they wish to make. And the final aspect is having shared success. So the people who build with the OP stack get to contribute and shape the direction of the OP stack. If they don't find that the standard configuration of the stack works for them, they can fork it. They can do what they want. They can essentially decide, we don't want to contribute to the Optimism collective. We don't want to give up any revenue share, but we want to take your stack and use it and add our own custom configurations. We want to make the OP stack the most forkable piece of code in the world so that people can do that. They can innovate, they can experiment, and be able to decide whatever decisions they want to make, run with it, use it, and hopefully rise all tides through the design decisions that we've made. So a little bit of backstory on the Optimism team. I have 25 seconds and I put 10 minutes on this, so I'm doing terribly on time. But I've been told I can keep going, so I'm gonna keep going. We have time. Sweet, awesome. So quick kind of rewind back to 2021, 2022 when we launched OP Mainnet. The Optimism blockchain. So now the Optimism blockchain, incredibly highly performant, $7 billion of assets locked on TVL on the blockchain. Many other teams like Farcaster, WorldCoin, all of the leading protocols, whether it be Aave, Uniswap, etc., have used and work on and generally find the Optimism blockchain to be incredibly easy to use as a general performant blockchain that we've pioneered. But there have been some problems when launching your own blockchain, which I think many people in this room would understand or resonate with, which is that we have not reached internet level scale. One blockchain will not do that. If a blockchain promises to you that it can do that, run away. Run in the opposite direction because it's not true. There's so much more that we still have to do. We still face challenges around fragmented liquidity. Liquidity is placed in all of these different chains and entities and areas, and it's not able to be consolidated or transferred in a seamless, interoperable way, which hopefully we're trying to solve in the next slide I'll mention. Security risks exist. I cannot go a week without hearing about the next vulnerability or security hack or risk or attack vector that's occurred in the industry. So still a lot of work for us to do on that side of things. To upgrade your blockchain, to add new functionality, or to be able to add key components that allow you to realize the vision that we set 5 years, 10 years down the line, require huge coordination of protocol upgrades. Ethereum in and of itself, the reason it has a multi-year roadmap, or one of the reasons I would say, is also because it's a kind of it's a decentralized, coordinated group of people. There isn't a single entity. Vitalik Buterin is not the CEO of Ethereum. There isn't a CEO of Ethereum. And so at times that might mean getting these decentralized groups of people together means that it becomes much harder to coordinate and define and decide around what protocol upgrades should happen and should exist. So being able to carry these out become incredibly challenging. And finally, one thing that was mentioned, I think on the gaming panel was, which I'll just quickly reference, was in order to think about how does Web3 interact or plug into Web2, well, my spicy-ish take is we need to design better games. We need to design better experiences. Crypto the game is a really good example that was referred to. It might not be integrating specific Web3 components into Web2. Of course, that will play an aspect. But we need to think about this in a whole new paradigm. We need to think about this in an entirely new perspective about what is now possible based on the technology that exists. But we have a ton of UX challenges, which mean that we are nowhere near even reaching the level of equivalence of Web 2 solutions right now. We don't have a Web 3 game that's as good as a Web 2 game at the moment. We need to get there and we need to surpass it and 10x that in order for us to really be taken as seriously as we want. Yeah, please. Questions are always welcome, by the way, so hit it.
How do you envision a Web 3 game, or what is a Web 3 game for you? Because how I feel, and maybe I'm misinterpreting, so you see, as you talk with the Web 2. Yeah.
I feel like you're talking like you have a Web 2 game and you have a Web 3 game, like separately, but I don't think you want to say this, right? Or what's for you a Web 3 game, and why is the Web 3 game not there where you think Web 2 games are at the moment?
Yeah, good question. I'll take the second. So just in case people didn't hear, essentially it's what does a Web 3 game look like to me, and why aren't Web 3 games at that same equivalent level on the Web 2? I'll take the second part first. Mainly, I feel like it might be an easy answer, and I'm also open to if other people want to answer too, is mainly around UX. I feel like UX is the thing, UX as well as one thing we do when we want to go on chain, we want to have fun. I guess one thing I think with Optimism that we really try and focus on is that fun element. And I don't think that there has really been that huge unlock on that stage. So thinking about the element of the psychological elements that come with certain games that we really enjoy and make us stick around and make us addictive to our phones and make us stay on our phones, there's not really been that unlock moment. And so I feel like we still have more to do to introduce some of these like game theory style psychological elements to certain games in order to have that kind of unlock in mind. I think UX is another big aspect. I think there are some great teams building great Web3 infra to improve that, whether it be on more the back-end infra side all the way through to the front-end infra side to make it a more seamless UX, which I'll speak about a little bit after. And then in terms of like Web3 games, I would say that there has not been, those killer use cases that I really feel like that we've seen yet, but I am 100% confident that they are out there, and there are people building this right now that we need to go out there, we need to search, we need to find, we need to support them, we need to ensure that they feel supported by this industry, even if the Web2 world might not look at it in the same way.
What's your favorite Web3 game?
So I really enjoyed Mud back in 2021, Autonomous Worlds. And I think now there are some really cool games happening on Lattice, on Redstone. Again, that's a bit of an OP plug, but I'm playing a lot on the OP side of things. There's one I wish I could tell you, but you'll know about it. You guys will know about it soon, which is a multiplayer MMO game that I'm really enjoying on a chain which hasn't been announced yet. And they've done a really, really great job. So I'll try and share that with the Gelato team to share widely when that's live as well. Cool, great question. Cool, I didn't even hit the slide. Cool, so Superchain, you guys have probably read it already. I've already talked about it so much. Shared characteristics, shared standards, trying to build the industry standard on this open source development stack. In order for us to do that, we need to make chains. There was a point that, Lewis, if you don't mind me disagreeing with you a little bit around, one of the things you mentioned was that around, I think it was you, it might have been someone else, around chains not being like smart contracts. I feel like we should actually have chains be like smart contracts.
That definitely wasn't me.
Wasn't you? Okay. I feel like that is one whereby we need to make it as easy as possible to leverage this infrastructure as code aspect that really exists very well in containers and in the Web2 world. In order for us to do that, we need to make it very easy to launch rollups, to launch chains, in order to have compute space and to be able to operate in an easy, efficient manner.
You know, I have this meme, a picture of a potato. If this thing can be vodka, your smart contract can be a chain. You know, like that's yeah. So definitely not me.
Smart contracts exist everywhere. Cool. So why Superchain? I think for us, very, very quick things I'm going to hit upon. One is around protocol upgrades. So for us, when teams decide that they want to join the Superchain and they buy into the Superchain, one thing that they get is that we essentially take care of all of the protocol upgrades for them. So rather than them having to deal with the operational overhead of forking the stack and then deciding to manage their own protocol upgrades, and a good example is Blast, huge Web3 layer 2 ecosystem. They took the OP stack, they decided to fork the OP stack, and they just manage their own protocols to some success and some that would have probably been better for them to join the Superchain, but those are decisions that they can make on their own. The second thing I'd mention is around cost. So huge focus for us, some of the engineers on the OP side had contributed very heavily and actually put the proposals in place around 4.4.4, which was an Ethereum improvement proposal which got launched in March. That led to a 100x decrease in the amount of cost that exists per transaction on your rollup. Right now, I've got a slide or a stat on this, but I think the median USD gas fee right now across the Superchain is 0.0033. So less than a penny to be able to transact across the Superchain. And the final thing I'll mention is around access. So being able to, secure and private as well, but secure and private very much touch upon the other elements, the alternative proof methods that we discussed earlier on. And in terms of access, one thing that we want to provide to these teams is, we want to help them when it comes to growth, when it comes to GTM, when it comes to marketing, when it comes to being eligible for retro funding. So these are other elements that we wish to incorporate and support these chains with and ensure that all these chains can actually work together, that it feels like this multiplayer cooperative game rather than each team competing in its own silos or in its own states without the support of the federate. Shout out to the Gelato marketing team for creating that too. I love it. Awesome. Some other stats I've mentioned, we're at like 4 million plus transactions per day across the Superchain. Total value locked around $16 billion. Base has been a huge driver of that. Base being a layer 2 blockchain from Coinbase and launching in August 2023. It's phenomenal what they've achieved in a very short space of time as well. But our real focus is on how can we keep driving these costs forward? How can we keep improving the UX of the work that we're doing? And some more stats. So we had almost 7 million weekly active addresses across the Superchain, across all of these different chains. There are 20 plus chains now, all the way from chains who've decided that they want to be part of the standard configuration to others who are layer 3 blockchains and want to contribute revenue to the collective, and so much more as well. And just to highlight a couple of these examples, then I've kind of spoken about Base already, but one of them is Zora. So Zora is essentially a commemorative minting platform, incredibly popular in the Web3 world for many teams, as well as for Web2 enterprises. And they make it incredibly easy to mint and launch essentially an NFT collection or a minting collection. They have over 1 million transactions a day, and they really wanted to find a new revenue stream for them. And I think them being able to launch their own sequencer, their own rollup, and be able to collect fees from that has been incredibly beneficial for them, as well as, of course, them contributing to the collective and being able to shape the direction of the decisions that are made. So when we think about the Superchain overall, we're trying to create the industry standard, as well as many other players and teams as part of this ecosystem. I think teams are betting on the Superchain and betting on us, mainly because we really believe in the importance of having this shared standard that we can all agree to. If we go back to the days of HTTP, FTP, these are all industry standards from a Web 1 aspect that the Web 2 teams ran with and were able to extract huge amounts of value, as well as create great consumer experiences from. We believe we can combine the best elements of Web 1 and Web 2, not just Optimism and Superchain, but hopefully as a collective and as an ecosystem, we can do that. This is why we're here, right? For digital ownership, there's decentralization, there's interoperability. These are the things that we're really trying to drive as an industry. In order to do that, we need to surpass aspects of Web 2. We need to have currently Web 2-like UX, whether it be social logins, not being able to, abstracting gas fees through chain abstraction and various other methods, and just make it really simple and easy for people to see why they should be on Web3. We should have compelling narratives on its own as to why these are better solutions and better products to use. And finally, when it comes to security, so that for us is absolute paramount. We think about the fault proofs that had recently launched for us. If we think about the Security Council that we introduced a couple of months ago as well, all of these things are there so that we can take the best parts of being human as well as smart contract as code and use that when it comes to automation, better security, and just more efficiency. We heard about these actual use cases earlier on with the payments panel and various others. So I think these kind of sometimes abstract concepts that I'm speaking about are playing out in the real world use cases. But in order for us to do that, we have to work together. We have to collaborate and cooperate together. We need to focus on this rising tide aspect in order for us to work hard and be able to see the impact that we can make as a collective. Then this is kind of the work and the responsibility of all of us. There was a couple of earlier we were talking about, again, referencing that payments panel where we spoke about we need to work on some of these ecosystems need to be able to work together or interoperate together. That I feel like is our responsibility as a ecosystem in order for us to create much better experiences and hopefully enable us to be in a better world. Thank you very much.